Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a while. It is the 25th of March, and yes, this is the first check-in I've had since the first week. Oh my goodness. I have been reading. Have I been reading the books from that first TBR? No, not yet. I did start Rabbit Run by Updike. Haven't finished it yet. It's not terrible, but I haven't finished it yet. Um, yeah, I've finished a lot of audiobooks because I went through almost eight of the Women's Prize longlist books. That was something I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do. And I could only find eight. So I can't do all 16. It's not going to happen. Because it's a British prize, the publication dates are based on Britain, not the US. So all of them were more or less available for the US this time, sort of, but some of them just came out, or I don't know if all of them are actually out yet, something like that. In any case, they're not in the library yet. So, unfortunately, I could only get eight. But compared to last year I couldn't get most of them when the long list was announced. So I didn't even try. Some of them are only just now filtering into the library. So I am working my way slowly through last year's long list. But yeah, so I finished eight of the Women's Prize, more or less. I haven't finished the Ministry of Time yet, and that's one that I actually have in print. But I finished. Let's see if I can remember them off the top of my head. Nesting, which is okay. I didn't relate very much to the story. It has things where I could relate to specific scenes or abstract, but the lifestyles portrayed in the book and my lifestyle are not that similar. So I know other people whose lives are a bit more similar, where they resonate more with the story. Really liked it, so I think that's really what it came down to. It wasn't a bad book. Yeah, that's not where I am in my life. Yeah. So Nesting was okay. Definitely rang true. Just not a book I would have picked up. Just if it wasn't a long list book. Just not for me. Good Girl was annoying. Yeah, it was annoying. I'm surprised that the main character survived all those drugs. Oh my goodness. I'm sure real people do that. I'm surprised they survive. I know a lot of them don't. Not a book I would be picking up to read, and I would not have finished it probably if it wasn't for a long list. Although, knowing me, I try to finish books anyway, even if they're terrible. So yeah. And it was at least not terrible, just not a book that I enjoyed. So didn't like Good Girl. Didn't like All Fours. Yeah, not for me. And yeah, most of my friends on BookTube seem to agree with me on Good Girl and All Fours. That they were lackluster, disappointing, frustrating. Will be probably annoyed if they end up being on the short list. Not good books. Those are the kind of books that make you wonder, how are they picking these books out of all of the thousands of books to choose from? And I guess there was at least 2,000 books to choose from. that met the basic criteria, how would those two books be on the list and not other books? Like Elif Shafak's book that I read in an ARC form last year. Good book. How is that not on the long list, but these other ones are? Glyph is not on the long list by Ali Smith. I didn't think it was as strong a literary fiction showing as some of her other books, although I liked it better than some of her other books. But compared to Good Girl and All Fours, yeah, it should have been on the long list. So I have to wonder. And actually, I have been picking out some other books that were not longlisted by the Women's Prize that are newly available at my library as streaming audiobooks to see what the competition was that didn't make the list. Just for my own curiosity. What are the other books that they're ignoring or that somehow they didn't pick? Anyway, I liked The Persians. I would agree it was a little confusing. The time sense was a bit off. It was hard to tell when and where we were from one scene to the next. That was just a writing and editing sort of thing. And if that had been tightened up a little bit, I think a lot of people would have enjoyed it more. It was just really easy to get lost. There were a lot of characters. It jumps around between different people in different generations and different settings, and there's a lot to keep straight. And if you are not someone who's familiar with the history of Iran, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be less familiar in addition to all the jumping around. So I'm not surprised that that one's not been as well received as I might have thought. I liked it, but it did have its flaws. There's lots of discussion about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's book, Dream Count, because of Adichie's comments about the whole trans topic, which I'm not going to get into here. There's other people making videos. Eric Carl Anderson did one that was really good. So if you want to dive deeper into that issue, there are places. I think that what she's said merits discussion, but not this weird canceling thing. I'm old. We did not talk about canceling people when I was in college. So that whole thing is just weird and shuts down conversations, and that's not healthy. Anyway, but the book is good. I actually really liked Dream Count. It, again, follows a lot of different people. There's a lot to unpack, which is great for literary fiction. That's what we want. Especially in a longer book that's following multiple generations. There's a lot of stuff going on in it. Feminism and the struggles that women go through from one generation to the next. And that there isn't a generation where being feminist doesn't make sense. I mean, there's always stuff going on. It's just the nature of the stuff, the nature of the struggle, and the issues that each woman in this book has to face and figure out how to deal with are different issues. They're all connected, but it doesn't look the same for each of those women. So that was one of the things I took out of it. There's a lot. Um, Basically, it's a great book club book because there's so much to unpack. Each chapter, you're going to find stuff to discuss, and great book. So those were like Persians and Dream Count would have been my runner-ups for favorite book. And then Fundamentally and The Dream Hotel were my favorite 2 books out of the 8 books I approached. Dream Hotel is, I think, supposed to be near future dystopia. Given what's going on in the US right now, it doesn't feel so near future. It feels like a slight variation on the present right now. So, that's interesting. Disturbing, really good book. Not very long, but there's a lot going on in it. It's by Leila Lalani. And I've seen it popping up on our library as streaming audio and an ebook, so it's obviously available now. And I think, is it Pantheon Books? Because, yeah, I think it's Pantheon that's been promoting it on my Facebook. So it's around. Highly recommend. Good book. And Fundamentally, and I don't remember the name of the author off the top of my head, but that one is about a young woman who takes a job for an aid organization. And she's supposed to be repatriating women who fell in with the fundamentalist crowd. And the adventures that ensue. It was really good. The author has herself worked in similar stuff, so she's writing from an informed perspective. It's her first novel, I believe. And it was really good. So, anyway, so I finished those. I haven't finished Ministry of Time. I got bogged down. And from what I've heard, that's not surprising. It's an okay book, but I'm not blown away by it yet. So I will finish it. Just not quite yet. The book in my thumbnail is the last book I finished just before making the video. Although I did it as an audiobook, but I do have it as a book. This is a paperback with sprayed edges. From before sprayed edges became such a thing. And it's trade paperback. No, mass market paperback. Little guy, mass market. But with sprayed edges. All green. And to match the green of Elphaba. I listened to, I think, 3 of the books in this series before this one. Even though this is book 1. So I need to go back and redo some of the other ones now to see if some of that makes sense differently now that I've finished this book. Because, yeah, it wasn't available when I found books 2 and 3 and maybe 4. So I just dove in on book 2 and figured, well, I know Wizard of Oz really well, and I finished the entire series of the original Wizard of Oz series. So I shouldn't be that lost. And I was a little lost, so that'll probably be a reread later this year. But I finally finished Wicked. 4 stars, not amazing, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. And I did really like the politics. So, yeah. And then I finished The Strange Eventful History by Claire Massoud. It was okay. I don't remember a lot of the details. I remember it was okay. And if I poke at it, I can remind myself what it was about. But it didn't really stick. So I remember that it's centered around a dude and kind of following him through his life. And I was really annoyed at him. So that's probably part of why I don't know the story very well afterwards. Anyway, and this one's one that I found as an audiobook. So I was immersive reading it. And this book I got from the free shelf because the pages are losing their glue and falling out of the book. So it is done. I would recommend it, but it is slower paced. Slow to medium, but on the slow side. And if you don't like the characters, it gets tedious. Another one I was not impressed with, although the cover is beautiful. Yes. So Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Kind of Eastern religion inspired. But only sort of. It's very YA. So we are in the main character's head pretty much the entire book. She's a young woman who notices clothes and fashion. So we get lots of detail about clothes and fashion. But when she walks into a new space, we don't see what the space looks like because she's not really paying attention to that. Why would she? So it's an awkward storytelling format. It's part of why I don't usually like first-person narratives. Because if we're in their head and they're not looking at it, we don't get to see it. And this author stuck very closely to that. So her writing teacher would probably be happy. But it does mean that you don't really get a sense of the space. She's definitely not using all the senses to draw us into the story, because why would she? Actually, that's something where she could improve it without messing up the structure of her storytelling. Just telling us what she's eating and describing, what she's smelling, bringing in the other senses. It's a writer trick that this book would have improved by. So this one was 3.5 stars for me. Not a favorite. I do have the second book, and I will probably finish it. But it's not one where I'm anticipating it being a 5-star, even though the covers are very pretty. And I've heard lower reviews from friends. So I think partly it's YA and it's just not a very strong showing. But maybe book 2 is better because, practice. Book 2 is, has had book 1's worth of writing for practice. I don't know. But I'm not expecting much still. Yeah. It was interesting. Yeah. So one of the series I've been going through is Bill O'Reilly's Killing series, which is history, but following a particular plot line. So they read as a more structured story. If you're telling the history of, the Revolutionary War, for example, which would be killing England. In the Revolutionary War, there's so much going on in so many different places that a lot of the history books just end up telling you like an info dump. All the stuff, all the dates, all the people. And it gets overwhelming really fast. So O'Reilly's books tend to focus around a particular plot, so a particular story arc, and bring in other details as they pertain to that story arc. So they read a lot more smoothly than your typical history. So here's Killing England. This one is the history of the U.S. American Revolutionary War. I don't remember what they call it in Britain. They don't call it that. But the war in which the colonies broke away from England and became their own country. And it took forever. It took a lot more years than some people think. And especially if you measure from the first battle to the Declaration of Independence and then the actual independence and official end of the war, it took a while. And France was very much involved. So, interesting. And obviously, being a nerd in the US, I have read other books about this war. But I highly recommend this one. It was good. Very readable. If you were not from the US, I think you'd still understand the story. You might want to Google things or look them up on Wikipedia every once in a while. Because there is a little bit of assumption that you are familiar with the basics of U.S. history, but not as much in this book as in other ones, just because the U.S. doesn't exist yet. So, anyway, Killing England. And then the other one I finished was Killing Patton. So this one is following the eventual demise of General Patton. And the, let's see what I'm going to give you guys on this one. So it goes well with Killing the Rising Sun, which I don't have in print here with me. So Killing the Rising Sun is Japan. This one is the German theater of World War II. And both are kind of trying to narrow in that focus again. So instead of telling all of World War II, this one is following Patton, and the Killing the Rising Sun is following the development and use of the nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So they're, same sort of principle. We have a plot line that we're following. And the details are brought in as necessary. So far it's a really good series. I have Killing Kennedy at the moment, so that'll be the next one I do. And I actually do have that one in print somewhere. Yes, I do. I have Killing Kennedy in print. But I also have it in audiobook, so I'm going to do whichever one I have time for and energy for. And then I also have Killing the SS, which is right here. And I don't really know why they did Killing the SS with a yellow spine. The rest of them are kind of a gray spine. But here's Killing the SS. Which I'm guessing I already know what it's about. But haven't actually done this one yet. And I'm guessing that this one, Killing Patton and Killing the Rising Sun, would be a pretty good set to get you, more familiar with World War II. So that's my guess. Anyway, so I've been enjoying that series. I started reading or listening to them because the history department at the bookstore that I volunteer at has a bunch of the series, and I work in the history department, among other things. So knowing these books means I can write little blurbs about them and sell them easier, because they stack up otherwise. We have lots of them, and I think because we have lots of them, it looks like nobody wants them because there's a lot of them, and yeah, anyway. So, yeah, they're pretty good. I definitely recommend them, and they're easy nonfiction, so you don't have to wade through too much. So if you're looking for nonfiction for a prompt, but tend to fall asleep reading history, these might be good. I did finish one Doctor Who so far, Deep Time, with Clara Oswald. And the books that I spent the most time on that I have in print is, let's see, this is book 2. Let's do these in the right order here. Here's book 1, A Shadow of What Was Lost. Dun dun dun. An echo of things to come. Dun dun dun. And then somewhere around here, I have book 3, which I did not bring over here. Anyway, I have book 3. I finished the first 2, and I'll probably start book 3 this week. So that series I should be able to finish by the end of the month. We got in all 3 of them slightly water damaged, where we can't put them on the shelf. So I got them off the free shelf. All 3 of them. Yeah. So, I definitely recommend this trilogy. They're fun. But they have a long learning curve. If you don't read epic fantasy because you get bored, these might not be for you. But if you like the kind of epic fantasy where there's a long setup, this is that kind. And it starts out bleak, so don't expect an uplifting story. Anytime something good happens, something bad has to happen. I recognize this style. And I don't remember if Brandon Sanderson has ever mentioned James Islington in his lectures, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're acquainted, because it sure seems like the sort of plot-moving sort of mechanisms is what Sanderson talks about. And I think it is James Islington, and we've discussed this, Islington versus Islington. The place is Islington, but the audiobooks, they've been saying Islington, so I'm going to go with Islington. Anyway, so that's kind of what I've been reading. I've done a few other audiobooks, and I have some nonfiction books that are not the Killing series as well that I have been reading and will be reading. The one that I've been listening to and reading, let's see, just reading, not listening to, I couldn't find it in audiobook, is Our Revolution by Bernie Sanders. So this one I'm going to read and try to get done before the day after today, because I need to give it back to the bookstore so we can sell it. But we have enough books on the shelf right now that I could bring it home, read it, then bring it back. So, yeah. So we'll see how I do by the end of the month. According to Goodreads, I'm still 25 or 26 books ahead of schedule for finishing 400 books this year. So I haven't looked at how many I've finished this month, but probably not too bad. I only finished 5 books during the big peace weekend for Realmathon. Not a huge showing, but that's not surprising. I've pretty much accepted that I'm just not really good at pivoting to those weekends where you try and get as many books as possible done. It doesn't work. Guaranteed, it will be the weekend that everything else is happening. So this month, our bookstore was having a big sale on Saturday. So I was geared up for that and not really focusing on books until I got back from the sale. And then I was tired. And so instead of reading with eyeballs, I can read pretty quickly if I'm reading with my eyes. I was doing audiobooks because I didn't have the energy right away to be reading physically if I didn't have to. So that, didn't help. And then the day after that was one of the Sundays that we do stitching. So I had my stitching club that showed up and had to be social and actually show up at my own stitching group. Yeah. So there went that. But yeah, I finished 5 books that weekend. And yeah, I've been doing 1 or 2 books for positive points for Team Monarch, and then negative points in between, and all the epic fantasy and significant fantasy I've been doing positive points with, and the other books have been negative points but spaced out, so not attacking any particular team, keeping it fair. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see by the end of the month. Yeah. There will be one more video about March at the end of March, because I will finish more books by the end of March. And then we'll be into April. And hopefully I'll do a TBR. So, yeah. So hopefully you guys are having a great reading weekend and reading week at this point. It was going to be a weekend video. Never mind. And I will catch you in the next video. Talk to you later, guys. Bye!